Transform and roll out!
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talking the Smack, where we talk superheroes, movies, animation, comics, and much, much more. I'm your host, Josh Scar, and Alex is out of town, so I had to call in a couple of ringers just to fill in for the talent that he brings to the show every week. I am joined by Justin from the Movie Wire, and I'm also joined by Caesar, also known as the 7 C's from the No on 15 Allcast. Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening? Don't everyone talk all at once.
Yo, thank you for inviting me on. It's awesome to be back.
Yes.
I was concerned you guys were making me be a liar, like I was talking to myself.
No, it's great to be back, and this one I'm excited for, Josh, because I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be the villain in this one. I'm gonna be the grumpy old guy in this one.
Nice.
Well, I mean, looking at Caesar's wall, I'm pretty sure he will definitely be the prime of this podcast episode. How many Gen 1 kits you got in there?
I don't know, man. A lot. I got a 86 Optimus behind me, so that was that's in the middle, if you noticed. So you might not be villainy alone here, Justin.
Oh, thank God.
Uh-oh.
Love it.
But no, surprised. I'll say surprised. That's my thing. So
Yeah, Justin's got a beer going. We know it's going to be a good time because just like a few weeks ago, we might have a slow burn, just like we did with Alex, where Justin just might get a little more sloshed as the episode goes on.
I have 2 shots going before this, so it might come sooner than you think.
ooh.
One can only hope. Before we start talking Transformers 1 and finding out who is the Decepticon, who is the Autobot amongst us, we're going to hear from our friends Josh and Amanda over at the Super Familiar with the Wilsons podcast. We're going to hear from them. We'll be right back.
The Super Familiar with the Wilsons podcast. You know that family whose house you hung out in when you were a kid? The house was a little loud and chaotic, but always fun, and sometimes felt more home than home. Well, that's us.
We're the Wilsons, and we welcome you into our podcast with silly chat, ridiculous games, and interviews with interesting people.
Like a spin doctor. The Super Familiar with the Wilsons podcast.
Welcome home.
And we are back. We are here to talk about the first animated Transformers film in 38 years. I got confused when I saw a bunch of people celebrating 40 years of Transformers because I admittedly am not the most well-versed in Transformers. I think they're a fun concept. The toys look super cool. I think, what was the giant T-Rex city was a Transformer?
Trypticon.
Yeah, I think I had that. I don't know how or why I ever had it, but my parents got it for me because I was really into dinosaurs and Power Rangers and like robot dinosaur. That's clearly something up Josh's alley. Let's just get him that. And yeah, I played the hell out of that thing. But admittedly, I did not know much about like Orion Pax and D16 and the origin stories of Megatron and Optimus Prime, which I did a little research and found out that there really is kind of no set origin story for Optimus Prime becoming Optimus Prime from Orion Pax. It's changed a couple of times over the last 40 years, but now they're kind of settling into it because Hasbro is trying to build out a connected universe amongst all the other connected universes. But before we really dive into the movie, I'm just curious. Again, Caesar, your background is just, it's making me too curious. Like, what brought you into the Transformers franchise? And like, can you share a little bit about like what drives you to continue being a fan of the franchise?
All right. Well, like we're going way back down memory lane. I'm going to age myself here, but I would say in kindergarten, when I was in kindergarten, when I would get home from school, this is about 85, I think 1985, 86, around there. So I was watching reruns already at that age, I think, with Transformers because it started in 84. And it was something of that time. Like, it was like Inspector Gadget, Transformers, He-Man. All that stuff was so popular. And it really, those were cartoons created to sell toys, right? Like, so it did its job. And I think that growing up with that stuff which was really memorable, like card boxes on toys that are super colorful would catch a kid's eye. the artwork, and then later on the lore that came behind it. Like there's Marvel comics, like G.I. Joe and Transformers and stuff like that. You can go down a rabbit hole for sure. And then it's just kind of, over the 40 years, it's gone a bunch of different directions, and some really, really bad, some interesting, and I would say a touch good here and there. So just depends what you like. Yeah, I don't know if you had a specific question about.
Nope. Just like how you were introduced to the franchise, and just like what do you love about it, other than like maybe just the nostalgia. Obviously the designs are super cool, and the concepts. I think part of what you just said, I think that's where I did not grow up necessarily a fan. Like I think I was tangentially aware of it, but I was born in '85, so like the syndication of Transformers and He-Man, I think like when I really started paying attention to TV, especially more like almost tween age animated series, they had already moved away from the cartoons that were designed to be 30-minute toy commercials. Like I think that's around the time where I was watching Dino Riders, robotics, and all that sort of stuff, where they're like, oh shit, we can't produce these as toy commercials anymore. We might as well just make these like 4 episodes we produced into a movie and call it a day.
No, I agree definitely, because it's just that the transition. I think generationally toys change, right? Like stuff that people are interested in, and the cartoons and the merchandising. And no, for me, I think I dug the nobility of the characters as a kid. Like Optimus Prime is just, I would say in that universe, he's like Captain America in Marvel's universe. He's just
definitely,
like the do right person. He has morals, someone you can get behind. And I think I always kind of clung to that as a kid, and it kind of helped me out, growing up.
Then again, like just what Optimus Prime has become through the live action movies, like he's just slowly descended into madness, where he, like, his catchphrase at this point is basically just "I'll kill you." No, that's my Optimus Prime right there.
That's the alternate universe Bayformers.
Justin, how about you? How were you introduced to Transformers, and how big of a fan would you say you are?
I'm not a fan at all. Well, let me back up. I was never big with Transformers in the 80s. I was born in 82, so, I wasn't the popular one that went after G.I. Joes and Transformers. I loved Ninja Turtles. I loved all the Inspector Gadgets. I loved all the things that was just kind of goofy fun. So G.I. Joe and Transformers, they had a serious tone to it almost, where it just didn't really appeal to me. And I remember getting a Transformer for Christmas, and it even amplified my dissatisfaction for it, because putting it together, I broke it out of frustration trying to put it together. So I'm like, screw this. I'm going back to my Inspector Gadget Ninja Turtles that don't break when I'm trying to put something together. That just shows my intelligence in the 80s. So to me, I can respect the cartoon now as an adult, because there is some more appeal, I think, as a more mature. I think as kids, the appeal is there. A toy that you can do more than just use your imagination with, and you can actually keep busy by a puzzle action figure. It's absolutely brilliant. And adding that to a cartoon that actually adds a backstory with, the 80s was notorious for this, and I really do appreciate that. And we don't see that anymore, of really adding that imagination to cartoons to tie into toys. So there's a level of respect. I don't hate the idea. I actually respect it more than what we get now. But, the movies are kind of milking it here at this point. So to me, I think there is a level of disrespect that's growing on me that I think will leak through my frustration as we get deeper into this context of this conversation.
I would have loved to have seen 1980-something Justin breaking his Transformer. If you could transport him into 2007 or 2008 and give him a 2007 Bumblebee action figure and be like, transform this, and tell me how hard that one is. I remember my dad bought my nephew, who was turning 7 that year. He bought him the big 18-inch long Bumblebee Camaro figure that it could be the Camaro, then it could transform into a 20-inch tall Bumblebee. And that thing took 20 minutes to just break down and build up into from Bumblebee into the Camaro. I'm like, aren't these supposed to be easy and fun, like convenient? Like you're wasting half your playtime just transforming this thing. And so I think in the last 15 years, almost 20 years, since the Bayformers have come into play, I think a little bit of the simplicity of the Transformers has been lost. And I think part of that's a big appeal to younger kids, at least for Transformers, is because like, yeah, Optimus Prime, his head pops out, his arms pop out, and then you just flip the back of the truck and his legs come out. Like it's that simple. And it's just not that, it doesn't seem to be that way anymore for at least the movie adaptation figures. But that's neither here nor there. We are here to talk about Transformers 1, which they let you know that 1 is the title of this movie several times throughout the movie. And just because you guys have kind of already given your thoughts vaguely, that apparently they skew a little more negative, let's start with a positive thought that you have towards this movie. Just something that you walked away from where you're like, they did that well, or that I like this. So Caesar, again, is the almost lifelong fan. Let's start with you.
I was surprised how well the characterization was used for traits of people. The way they went about the loyalty and the trust and the power, like these things that people have, right? And especially in relationships. And like the relationship between Megatron and Orion Pax, I think the brotherhood that was displayed, it was interesting to see that. And I think for someone that might not be a fan of this at all, and you just look at the story and that aspect of it, it's pretty interesting to see that. And I thought that was different. To know, like, obviously, if you're a fan of this, like this franchise and this universe, then there's various different takes on that story, like how those two characters come to meet and, you know, essentially what drives them apart. So I think that seeing that, and also seeing there's two different sides to this. There's the side of someone that wants to do things by the book and just kind of continue to progress in whatever world they're living in. And then someone else who wants to make things better, but at the cost of essentially a friendship with someone else, like without maybe realizing it, you know. I thought that was very interesting.
Justin, what did you like?
So this one's going to be a backhanded comment or compliment on it, but you know, so I think the movie looks sharp. That's the first appeal to it, and you have to have that with an animated movie. It does look sharp, but at the same time, it looks too sharp. It looks too polished to the point it feels so structured, and it ends up being kind of one of my biggest complaints with this movie was it looks so good, but it really doesn't take us anywhere. It doesn't really pique the imagination of this world that we're being introduced to for the first time. So that would be my backhanded compliment to it. But the other piece of it is, one, it's a spectacle. It's a roller coaster. This is going to put kids in their seats. This is really going to have the appeal. Actually, this is going to be a backhanded compliment too. Damn. So this one is really going to have that appeal with no substance to it, where we don't have the imagination to it, where it really will entertain kids. But at the end of the movie, there's really nothing to take away from it as memorable as I say we get to the original Transformers. Because I did like the original Transformers movie because I can still remember my first viewing of it because I took something away from it, whether that's a soundtrack or the emotional level. Here, we don't get robots in disguise. We get Michael Bay in disguise that really goes off of that main concept of just pure action of giving what people what they want. And I swear to God, I'm trying to find something good. I swear. The audio was good. I did like the audio. And I'll stop there.
See, I find that compliment very interesting because I think it has to have been my theater because I noticed it when I was sitting there. I brought my two oldest kids with me as well. The audio got more quiet when the action sequences happened. Like, I don't know if it's kind of like a Spider-Verse kind of thing where the audio mix was more sophisticated than what my theater has available to it. And maybe the audio mix would be different if I'd gone to see it in IMAX. But I had seen it in just a standard screening, and like I understood what everyone was saying, and the explosions and everything were never like, it didn't sound too bombastic or anything like that. But I did notice that the mix, at least for the screening I had, it didn't sound the best. And I was curious if that was a case across other screenings as well. Or again, maybe it's just because my theater is almost 30 years old now and it's in dire need of some updates. And they're like, well, you have a faux IMAX. What else do you want? But if I'm going to compliment anything, like I will say I noticed the score. The score was actually pretty good. There were some nice subtle hints to like the 80s background of the franchise with some synth score. But there's some really good just like orchestral and choir score stuff too. And then the environments I think were very good. I think the Quintesson ship was probably the thing I really liked the most. Like it looked like something out of the Dark Crystal in a way. Like it looked like something that would have been in like Halo and the Dark Crystal combined. Like that's what you would get. It almost looked like a Corvette or a Phantom, but in a Dark Crystal kind of design from Jim Henson. I honestly, that's about the best compliments I can give this movie. I am also on the side of this was kind of a disappointment for me. There's not a lot here, and I'm going to kind of kickstart my thoughts here because like I think part of what I never felt attached to the story and the character designs, there was something off about them. And I think it's partly because they all have the same face, just everything surrounding the face was different. And I think that was a big problem because a lot of this is very tight and kind of almost claustrophobic when it's not a big action sequence where they do more wide shots. If someone's talking, they're very close to the face. And I hate the talking mouth robots. Like you have what Michael Bay did to Optimus Prime. You have what Joss Whedon did to Ultron. And like it can go on and on and on. And you don't need the mouth to convey that they're speaking, especially if they have a distinctive voice. And I think part of what really, for lack of a better word, bored me with this movie was the fact that everyone looked the same and everyone just sounded like a person. There wasn't that unique Transformers sound to the way they spoke or the way they looked outside of, again, like the exoskeleton of them. It just looked like they were in battle armor the entire time.
All right, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. That was because they were not Transformers yet. They were minors. And also, Orion Pax is not Optimus Prime yet. So that does make sense. In the context of the story, he is not Optimus Prime from the 80s. But I'm not I'm not also like, condoning for whatever reason. I will say that is one of my biggest, I guess, nitpicks of the Bay verse, because it somehow has to be connected to that for some reason. Like they're stuck
because
on
it's
that.
a $7 billion franchise.
No, I know, but it's just like Michael Bay and what he did to the franchise, and it just keeps coming back, like in one way or another. Like having to have some connective tissue there is what probably bugs me the most in any of the new movies that they make. So I think for me, it's a little different knowing some of the lore and some of the backstory there, like reading some of the comics. I can kind of see what they were trying to do, and I did kind of like the take that they did with, D16 and Orion Pax, like that story of them. That to me is really the only thing that I'd probably kept me watching it. And again, what I also think about when it comes to this stuff, like any of these IPs that we grew up with that are completely different now, whether it be Ninja Turtles or Transformers or G.I. Joe that they're trying to make again, and it's not our demographic anymore. Right? Like we're not in that age anymore. You know what I mean? So I always try to think about it that way too.
The idea is the animated features, the good ones, the ones that are heralded very well, which like this one weirdly has like an 89% Rotten Tomato score, which I mean, that means like it could have 89 out of 100, 3 out of 5s. And as long as they seem favorable, that's all that really means. But like the most heralded animated features would be considered more all ages, not just like for kids. And that's the thing that the Minecraft movie is getting a lot of slack for, is the guy who directed it is like, I'm making this for 6-year-olds, not you 40-year-old neckbeard who still plays Minecraft. And like to an extent, like, okay, yeah, but it can be made for everyone who loves Minecraft. Just because it's skewing a little bit more kid friendly doesn't mean that it has to be strictly for kids or it has to be more mature. Because I saw a quote from the director where he said, like, yeah, everyone was obviously traumatized by Optimus Prime dying in the 1984 film, but I wanted to go a different way. I wanted kids to walk away having fun. And it's like, kids can, like, have you seen the 84 movie? It's still fun. Like, yeah, you're traumatized in the beginning, but then you build towards something by the end of it. Whereas this one, like, it really, the best way I can describe it is it feels almost more like a streamer. Like there were moments in the film where I'm just like, this feels like it could have been like a 5 or 6 episode Paramount Plus feature. Like, oh, hey, come back week to week where we see the next adventures of Orion Pax and D16 on their way to becoming Optimus Prime and Megatron. And I think for a streamer that, like, people would have been like, oh, this was really cool. This is fun. But for sitting down in a movie theater for 2 hours through 15 minutes of trailers and 5 minutes of, hey, please come to AMC, hey, come to Regal and blah, blah, blah. And then finally getting to the movie, I felt like it just kind of, it was constantly just plateauing, and none of the action really felt extraordinarily interesting. But I kind of stepped over Justin's toes. Justin, feel free to come on in with your critiques and thoughts.
I'm squirming in my chair right now because this is a topic that really kind of bites me in the ass. Open and honest, I saw this after, I think, Hellboy, and that already put me in a bad mood. And
Oh, no.
so, but then
The Crooked Man, right? Hellboy, the
Crooked Man. Good God, stay away from that one. Anyway, that's a whole other episode. But not only that, but my frustration grew over the last couple of years of these animated movies that I've seen almost month after month. We have Trolls, Garfield, Despicable Me 4, Kung Fu Panda 4, good God, Megamind 2, all these studios banking on the characters to drive these movies, to drive these toy sales, per se. But here's the deal, is these movies are solely banking on this, and this is what drives me nuts. The ones that did it well added some emotion, added some heart. You have Mutant Mayhem that did a pretty decent job in adding that relatability of being wanted. You had Spider-Man that had that heart to it. These are the characters in the movies that really did drive this home, that made them so successful. These other pieces of garbage movies that solely bank on just the characters doing things in movies really pisses me off, because it almost becomes too obvious that they're trying to sell toys with this one. And if that's the intent, that's okay. But at the same time, when we were kids, and I'm going to age myself too, there was some heart and some intent to these movies of giving a reason why we should buy these toys, not because we go to a climax of things going boom, where we go to that Michael Bay thing. These are transforming toys, and one of the best scenes, I'll take it back, one of the best scenes of this movie is when our Transformers are learning to transform, but it's so short and so wasted that it really doesn't add to that imagination. The biggest problem with Transformers is that it doesn't tap into the imagination of the whole intent of these kids playing with these toys, and it goes into the Michael Bay-esque cliche of just fighting at the end, the violence, the flamethrowers, the cannons. So to me, it's wasted, and we see that in the last 2 years of these wasted characters just, again, doing things. And that's what I think really irritates me, because I've tried, and Josh, you know this, I've tried to convince myself to like this movie more, but every time I talk about it, it makes me irritated. Not because it's a horrible movie. It's not a horrible movie. It's an okay movie. But the intent of what it's doing and where movies are going, this is the grumpy old man side of me, is it's in the wrong direction. We can have kids critically think about messaging and things like that. I'm not even going to go that far. Give one damn message of morals to this movie, and then you might have something of value. Give one thing of imagination, and you might have, oh, Caesar, you're going to go. I know. Hang on. So The friendship piece of it, they go for. But I swear to God, halfway through the movie, I mouthed to myself in the theater, if I have to hear one more generic piece of dialogue that says, you got it, bro, you can do it, give me something more than that just force feed me this intent of friendship. Give me some attachment to this. I digress.
I'm gonna be devil's advocate this whole episode. I have to be. I think. No, I see what you're saying. I think at the same time, being devil's advocate for a new generation, it does explain why they're Autobots and Decepticons pretty well. If they're gonna follow and start off like with something new, I think that's something you can take away from this. And if you're a fan of this, I think you would like that. If you're not, then you are definitely going to see the flaws that Bay has implemented, or not implemented, but inserted into this universe. So you'll continue to see those same flaws. So I definitely agree with that. And I think like being fair, like the '86 movie was also like seeing like the death of Optimus Prime as a kid. Like going back to that and killing a lot of those older Transformers was again to sell more toys. Let's not forget that, because they had another line of toys coming after that, which was Generation 2. So I think in that context, it kind of is the same way. And I see why some people are saying this is the best Transformers movie since the original Transformers movie. So I can see that as well because of that. So I can see some of those likenesses. It's not obviously going to ever be one for us, but yeah, I'll leave it there for now.
I still think I had more fun with Bumblebee and Rise of the Beasts than I did with this one. I think I don't care much for the human story. I think that they need to skew away from the human stuff and getting the MacGuffin so that we can stop Cybertron from coming to Earth and blah, 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 which they kind of did at Rise of the Beast, but instead of Cybertron, it was Unicron. Caesar, I do agree with you that I think for new people coming into this, especially younger kids, like my oldest, who will be 9 later this year, they asked me pretty early on, they're like, why do they keep calling him Pax? Like, what's going on here? It's like, this is the story of how he becomes Optimus Prime. He is currently this guy. He is Orion Pax, and this is the story of how he becomes Optimus Prime. And they're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And so they were trying to like watch and keep an eye out for like little clues of like, is that going to be something? Is that going to be something? Is that how he becomes Optimus Prime? And so like, the kids are engaged. They're trying to figure things out. They're trying to follow along. And then I think if the heart of this movie is the friendship between Orion Pax and D16, I think they needed to draw out the turn a little slower for D16 into Megatron, because I think what they needed to do with that is which we're doing spoilers, by the way. You've pretty much seen the movie from the trailers. Like even the post-credit scene is in the trailers. Yep. Like the entire post-credit scene is in the trailers. But I would have liked to have them like almost kind of struggling where Orion Pax is just leading, like he's just doing the thing he's done the entire movie, and now D16 is trying to he's like, I have the power, we can do this, like I can do this. And we see a little bit of that, but it's more just like him raging against the cultural machine that they were brought up in and raised to think that it was the right thing to do, and they find out that it's not, and that they've been betrayed morally and ethically from their leadership. I think if it was more like Orion Pax was just doing the right thing to do the right thing, like you were saying earlier, Caesar, he's being the Boy Scout, he's just doing the thing that he does, and Megatron is trying to like figure out the right combination of actions to manifest the matrix of leadership, and then it like manifests in front of both of them and he can't get it, but then Pax goes and reaches for it, and then maybe you get the transformation sequence where he becomes Optimus Prime. I think something like that would be more impactful, because then again you have Megatron, D16 becoming more resentful and spiteful that he thought he was taking the right path, and the Primes, they did not agree with him, and now he's like, fuck them, I'm right. Instead, the movie is like just becomes him being disgruntled and like, oh, the machine is broken, so therefore I'm gonna pull a Daenerys Targaryen and just go completely insane immediately and just try to destroy the machine. And it didn't quite work in a 100-minute movie. I thought that was too quick of a turnaround, and everything just happened too fast from the moment they got their cogs.
So I would agree, because I think when we get to the buildup, I think it was too simplistic, and I get the audience, I really do. And this is trying to appease both the old and the new. But I think we do insult a lot of the youth right now, that they really can't handle complicated stories, because they can, as long as they do it right. And here, I think it's almost... I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it, is almost an insult to the youth, where they treat it so simplistic, where we get to that point where it's the transition between these, where it's almost like a light switch, where it does happen too fast. We have that moment where there's the betrayal of somebody we look up to, and then obviously just accept it. This is going to be a turn. This is why we're going to have these two separate. I think it could have been a little bit more complex to really add something to appease both audiences. Because to me, I think the biggest letdown was after watching the movies, watching the animated movie, and just coming into this, not knowing as much as Caesar does, is give me something more. Because even coming into it, I felt it was way too simplistic, where the age bracket may have been like 5 to 7 at best when it comes to storytelling complexity. So I think if I were to advocate the youth and how we see movies today, this one is really going down a path of treating movies as more of a roller coaster versus really affecting the way we critically think as youth. So to me, I think this could have gone to the direction a little bit more if we can just slow down the storytelling aspect and really amplify these characters. Because if I were to assume, and Caesar, correct me, please do, if we were fans and this prequel, and to Josh's point, there's not a lot out there when it comes to origin stories. I can't imagine fans being okay with just the simplistic origin of these two being minors. They have simplistic lines, and we are to deal with that. So to me, it's hard for me to swallow that. And again, I could be wrong, so I'm not a fan, so I'll leave that to you. But to me, it just came across as lingering in my mind as, why is this so simplistic?
I got you. I think, again, devil's advocate, here we go. This is... What
we're breaking Caesar
kids.
with this one.
No. This is awesome. I love it.
I had a one-liner that I cocked in really quick. There's more nuance in a 7-minute episode of Bluey than there is in this movie.
All right. I would say it's pretty complex for kids to get peer pressured into a life that you never wanted, which is what happens in this movie, essentially. Orion Pax keeps pressuring D16 throughout the whole movie to do something that he doesn't want to do, right? And that's a pretty important lesson in life, I think, for kids. And eventually, to the point where when he does get power, he gets corrupt because he realizes he's lied to. And he thinks he's doing the right thing every single day of his life. So I think those lessons are there. And I think that, to me, was kind of deep. That's something my wife even was like, this is like in a... I'm sorry if nobody gets this reference, but the movie Blood In, Blood Out, if you've ever seen that movie, Bound by Honor, it's a gang movie, but there's a character, it goes through different decades of their lives, and one character is just trying to prove himself to someone else, and he keeps getting peer pressured by someone else to do something, and ends up ruining his life. So my wife actually made that comparison. I was like, wait a minute, that's like a gang movie, and we're watching Transformers 1 here, which is for kids. So that the reason that there's a correlation there was crazy to me. Like I totally see that, and I do understand that. Like if you're not a fan of this, you might want more. You might want more explanations. And to be fair, the origins have been different before. There's origins where D16 is actually like a gladiator in an arena, and all of Cybertron loves him, and he eventually rises up and fights back against the Primes, and wants to take Cybertron back for like the working class robots on the planet. So that's another origin story. And that's like an IDW comic storyline like that. I thought actually they might do that, but then they went with the minor side and the minor story, and I get that too. So it's a little less interesting, but
I can dig the rising up above your caste and the broken caste system concept. Like I'm here for it, especially kids, like if they can grasp the concept of a caste system and seeing what it does to people, like, yeah, great. I just think that, again, getting into more of how they portrayed the story elements, like Megatron's motivation by the end of it, again, I feel like if they had tweaked the way he was working, where like maybe if he wanted to get the matrix of leadership, I think that is something that makes more sense, because by the end of the movie, and they've established that the matrix of leadership is what makes Energon flow on Cybertron, he's kind of an idiot if he doesn't want there to be a prime. Like, I can understand him wanting to be a prime and he can be in charge of the Energon. Makes sense. But if he's just like, fuck the primes, I don't want any more primes, there should be no more primes, the primes are false prophets, blah blah blah, but then the matrix of leadership shows up and now all of a sudden everyone has Energon again, the Energon shortage is over, you're kind of the dumbass. And I like that part. Really,
he is a villain, so
yeah,
that would make sense.
Again, like it doesn't make sense in the idea that they gave him of like, I've been lied to my entire life, people are suffering because of this lie. And now, like, Optimus Prime, as he has become, has rectified that problem, and Energon is flowing again. But to me, he still came across more like, well, the primes are dumbasses. The primes shouldn't exist. The people should govern themselves and do this thing, and like the primes shouldn't be here. But literally, your life source is tied to the primes. Yeah. So shouldn't he want that power and not?
Yes. It takes millions of years, but later on in the storyline, he ends up, they do become friends again later on. But no, I totally agree. I think the fact that he didn't want any of it to begin with, and then when he got power and he saw, like that core that Sentinel Prime had that made him bigger and it belonged to, was it
Magnetronus
Prime, and he wanted it because it was his favorite Prime. So he was just obsessed with that. And then, yeah, he just kind of lost his way, honestly. He went kind of full Hayden Christensen in, Revenge of the Sith.
So, Caesar, as someone who's more involved with the Transformers lore, is the Energon thing tied to the Matrix of Leadership, or is that just something they did for the movie? Because, again, I feel like that's something. That's a plot point that doesn't make sense to me.
No, it's something they did for the movie because historically they search for Energon in different places, like in
like that makes more sense. And like it would make the idea of the quintessons also make a bit more sense, because if Energon is a finite resource, especially on Cybertron, and they have to go elsewhere to find it, then that makes sense. But if literally just Optimus Prime shows up and is now in control of the Matrix of Leadership, in possession of the Matrix of Leadership, and Energon is just flowing freely again, like they still have the crisis with the quintessons to deal with, which it sounds like they're pretty much pushovers if you have a Prime, and then like no one is starving anymore.
They just broke a Bay cannon. That's what they did.
Yeah, Cybertron's now a place where they can live openly again, and it doesn't make sense. And like I think that's a big part of what is kind of making me really just like this is not a bad movie. Like I said, the Rotten Tomatoes score, 89% of those Rotten Tomatoes scores are probably like 3.5 out of 5 stars. Or 2.5 out of 4, whatever the scale may be. I think a lot of those are probably just favorably middling reviews. And I think that's what this movie is it's a favorably middling movie. It doesn't do anything daring. It doesn't, there's nothing extraordinarily special about this movie. And again, I never really got that Transformers feel, because even once they get their cogs, that to me, it never felt like their cogs and their ability to transform played a significant role in the film and the plot, other than for Megatron.
Yeah, I mean, walking out of this movie, again, I try and stay away from any reviews, any user reviews. And after doing mine, I was surprised, but I wasn't on the user reviews on this, because I can tell walking out that this, when you get that first initial reaction of that adrenaline rush of feeling just like getting off of a theme park ride, that you're feeling some feeling of what you saw with your characters. So I can see why fans would like this movie. It's the same as if I were to watch, you know, I'll use this. It's a horrible example, but I'll use it. Walking into Inspector Gadget with Matthew Broderick. It's walking out of it. I really tried so hard to find something I liked about that movie, and I fooled myself to saying I actually had some fun with it. A year down the road, I didn't remember one damn thing about that movie. And I think that's what's really going to affect this movie is you'll have a lot of that initial reaction, but you'll have trouble 6 to a year down the road, and disagree with me, totally fine, that you won't really pinpoint a memorable moment in this movie other than maybe a 5-minute spiff here and there. So it'll be very hard for me to really kind of reflect on this movie a year down the road if I don't have to consistently rewatch it, if I have that want to. And that's going to be the key thing with kids, if the rewatchable piece is here. And I think kids are smart enough here to really have that emotional attachment, because kids will emotionally attach themselves to the rewatch value, not the spectacle. And I think that's where studios really lose that piece of it, is if they can relate or attach to a movie, then they are going to lose a little bit of aspect, but they will watch it one more time when it comes to streaming, I think. And then that's where we're going to lose a little bit of the value, because they're not relating to it unless they have a really brilliant toy line that's coming out following this movie.
Yeah, good point. The audience score is kind of high though, man. It's like 98%.
Yeah, I
For
don't-
now.
Again,
It's
maybe
it's kids clapping at the end, man. They got me.
it's guys getting the jollies out of seeing Transformers on the screen again and not being centered around a human storyline.
That is one thing I will say that I've been harping on for years, man. I would say that you don't, and I don't know why they're so insistent on having to have like humans be part of the storyline, because they're tertiary even in the original show, and like they're not the focus of the story. And I think that's kind of like what, obviously Michael Bay got hung up on in all those movies. Like Justin just said, like I tried so hard to find something to like in the original Transformers live action movie, and I just, it killed me.
I think that's what I really liked about Rise of the Beasts is the fact that it did center more around the Transformers issues than it did the human issues. Like the human issues just kind of so happened to tie into it more so. The guy's storyline more than anything. Like if I remember the girl from that movie, she broke into the Falcon artifact and then just kind of was along for the ride the rest of the movie. She didn't have much else to do other than be a sounding board for the other human character. But I would, if they could do a 90, 100-minute movie in the same way they did the opening to Bumblebee, that would be $1 billion movie. Yeah. That would be something that people would see repeatedly. And again, kids would go see it. Parents would take their kids because, again, if it's PG-13 and it looks like that, people would see it in a heartbeat. And I don't hate that. This could also be kind of like Paramount trying to recreate what they did with Ninja Turtles last year, where it's like, oh, if they like this enough, we'll do a Transformers series. Maybe we'll change the animation style so it's a little more affordable. But maybe we'll make a TV show out of this or a streaming show out of this, and then that'll continue the universe, and we'll do another movie after that at some point and do the War for Cybertron. Again, I think this is largely inoffensive. It's not anything that doesn't take any risks, and it doesn't take any big swings. It's just it tells you what it is, and that's what it is, and that's fine. But again, you don't walk away feeling like you saw something. You walk away feeling like, okay, yeah, I sat through a movie for 2 hours with trailers.
I think there was a pivotal moment here where, and I thought it was going to redeem itself, where we actually get our Transformers on their journey and they see the robotic deer-like creatures. I don't know the name. Caesar, you can tell me if there is a name.
The Quintessons?
Yes. Okay, sure. And then they have grass and they kind of see this environment. And that's kind of what I wanted more of. And they kind of just hint at it. But we have this planet, we have this world. And that's where the opportunity was there. And it almost gives us a middle finger to say, we're going to give you a little bit of taste of this. But we're not going to show you the entire thing. We're just going to get back to the action and kind of the arc of the story and see where this movie is going to go. And it goes into the kind of the conflict of it. And I really do hope, and I made that prediction, that if they come out with a sequel, it will be better than this one, because I am hoping they explore a lot of the other things of this open world, because at times this movie did feel very claustrophobic when it comes to this planet, even when they're traveling, because the quick edits happen. They don't give us too much. And I think that was the main frustration, is that we get an origin story and we get kind of a simplistic story. We get a simplistic setting. They use a lot of visuals based surrounding the characters with weapons and the scenic shots, but we don't get a lot of that. And that's where I really think a non-fan would have really been interested. And I think movies like this, they have an intent to satisfy fans, and they also have a responsibility to, as studios, to make some extra cash to bring people into this world to want to follow this story. And I think the fan base might have been satisfied, but I don't think outside of that, when it comes to the adults going to this movie, and again, given it's not targeted to adults, but they had an easy opportunity to make that happen, to want to have parents take their kids in the next one that might happen. So I think there was a missed opportunity here to create that world.
I think you made a good point there, Justin. I think the fan base will find hope in seeing this movie. And like you said, a sequel might be able to fill more of that in. And it just made me think, just in your description of it, like the claustrophobic stuff, that's pretty spot on. I think also, I wonder if the animation style was different, if it would have an effect on the film as a whole. Like, if more people might have dug it more. Because sometimes, and I don't know if anyone else has ever said this before, but I think sometimes it was just like CGI fatigue when it comes to animated movies. Mm-hmm. Like you're seeing the same. And okay, given this is ILM, this is only the second CGI movie they've made since I think they made the Ultraman one recently for Netflix. But it's still we've seen so much CGI stuff that something that differentiates it a little bit, the art style of Spider-Man movies recently, or the Ninja Turtle movie recently.
Ninja Turtles, yeah.
Yeah, something a little different might be better too, because I think some people are just getting tired of seeing the same CGI style.
And I think because Paramount just did Mutant Mayhem, and that was one that I said, I am going to hate this, and I actually did enjoy it. And Paramount had their hands in this one, and it really does surprise me they didn't do that in a little bit different way. If you're going to go Transformers, go all in on something different that made Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse successful, and Mutant Mayhem, because those are some really good, unique things to really express a lot of this emotion instead of generic CGI that I think the emotion was missing, that CGI can't really do unless you're Disney, that all you do is focus on the heart and the emotion.
I believe this is accurate. I leave the door open to be wrong, but I'm 90% sure Hasbro is actually the one that produced this, and along with Michael Bay and his Bayhem production company, and ILM was the animation house. I think Paramount just has the distribution rights. So I don't think they had much say in anything that was going on here. Whereas with Mutant Mayhem, Paramount owns Nickelodeon, and Paramount had more of a say in it. So I think that's kind of where Mutant Mayhem was a little more creative, where Paramount had more creative input on it. Whereas this one, they were just we get to mooch off of a little bit of Transformers cash if it makes good money. I'm pretty sure that's the hierarchy, because Hasbro has been making a lot of really bad decisions lately. Let's just put it that way. If Alex were here, he would probably be going off about how they want to implement AI into D&D stuff now, which that sounds like fun. Let's just scrub a bunch of players' ideas off the internet and make those the new rule book. Hasbro is just, they're the Sony of board games essentially right now, or toy lines or children's media, however you want to put it. They're not making great decisions, and they continue to double down on ideas that continue to lose them money. And what happened? I don't think this movie is going to make them lose money either. Like I think the merchandising and all that stuff is going to probably make them a pretty penny, and maybe they can spin this off into a Paramount TV show and then eventually a sequel. I don't know, but I do. Again, I don't want to keep acting like I'm skewing negative. I really enjoyed Chris Hemsworth, which apparently he worked with Peter Cullen to make sure he got some of the Optimus Prime-isms down, which I think he did. I think he had a lot of that.
He did,
like
yeah.
every now and then he would hit a note, and I was just like, "Oh, that's Optimus Prime right there, yeah." But for the most part, I was just like, "Yeah, that's his non-Australian accent for the most part." Brian Tyler Henry, I believe, was Megatron D16. I thought he was interesting choice. But I still thought it was a good performance. He does really good stuff. He's Jefferson Davis in Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse. But I thought Scarlett Johansson and Keegan-Michael Key, they might as well have not even been there. Like, they were just doing their own voices, and there was nothing unique about the performance. And just get anyone else in that could do something with those voices to give those characters a little bit more something in that performance.
Yeah, I agree with those, man. I think also going back a little bit there, I do feel like there was a little emotion at the end there with the turn and the little flashbacks they did of their friendship and just what happened. And like for fans of this, you are going to get hyped to see that turn of Orion Pax becoming Optimus Prime. I think you will enjoy
that. Was good. I will give the movie a lot of credit. The Orion Pax into Optimus Prime stuff was really good.
Yeah. And I think definitely, though, Bumblebee, and Melita 1's characters, they leave a lot to be desired. I think the voice actors are just getting a check there. I don't think they did much. Brian Tyree Henry and, Chris Hemsworth did pretty good, I think, with their, portrayals of those characters, I think, surprisingly. That's one thing at the beginning I said I was surprised because I didn't think I would at all be able to watch this just with different people doing those voices for those characters. So being able to actually watch the movie with those people doing the voices, I was surprised. Yeah.
I think for me, it's one of those, and Josh, my opinion on big stars in animated movies is I'm not a fan because it makes absolutely no difference. You can take any Joe that has a voice and manipulate it to make it sound good. So to me, the cast doesn't really make a difference to me. Is it a bad job? Absolutely not. I think it's an okay job, but to me, it just wasn't Transformer enough. I don't know. I just didn't really connect with the voices, and you could put anybody in that role. In my opinion, probably wouldn't change if that's what Josh Cooley, our director, really visualized what these voices were going to be. So I don't want to blame the exact voices, but I do think it's a direction problem when it comes to how it's envisioned. So this is the director the writer of Inside Out and the director of Toy Story 4 that really could have harnessed these voices into a little bit more emotion. And to me, that adds to a little bit of my frustration and disappointment in taking a movie like this and not really going really amplified with these character voices. So to me, the voice cast, again, different opinions, but to me, it really doesn't matter because I think anybody can do it, and studios can make it exactly how they want to envision it.
Yeah, 100%. This is another movie like the Paw Patrol movie where you don't need the celebrity cast to get kids into the seats. The kids are going to ask their parents to go see it, and just because Scarlett Johansson's in the movie is not going to make the parents go, "Oh, okay." That's not what you're there for. The draw is the Transformers. And God knows how much money they would have saved on the budget from casting normal voice actors.
100%.
And not bringing in Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, Keegan-Michael Key, and again, Brian Tyree Henry. I think he does a good job. He does voice work regularly as well. So it's not like he's unfamiliar with the voiceover process, but everyone else just it almost went oh, we've got 2 MCU names and we've got Toad from the Mario Brothers movie. Perfect.
Yeah, Mario Brothers movie's another one, man. I'm just
let's play it as safe as possible.
Oh, yeah, man. Just give me that voiceover money. Great agents. That's all I can say.
Yeah, there's not much else I really have to say about it. I remember messaging Justin and Alex after I got out today where, I don't know, Caesar, did you see it in 3D at all? Or did you see it in just standard format?
Just standard. I saw it in standard. I was kid wrangling the whole time. So.
Did the rendering stand out to you at all? Because there are certain shots where it's like, this is meant to be seen in 3D. Like, they rendered this shot specifically for 3D. They didn't do the, like, coming at you in the camera stuff, but there's, like, a shot of them sitting on, like, a pile of rocks at one point, and, like, you can just see the layers in the background where you're like, yeah, that was rendered for 3D. It just looks a little off.
Yeah, there's definitely moments where you see that, like the moment where I think the explosion happens in the mine, and they're trying to, like, fly out. And that's so Ryan Pack's, like, again, defying what people tell him to do and go back and try to save somebody. So that one of those things throughout the movie. I think you definitely see moments like that are designed just for 3D.
So getting into the talking smack ratings, we have must see or pass. There's no nuance on the internet, so we just say, are you going to recommend it to a friend? Are you going to go see it again, or are you just going to be like, I saw it, I'm good? So Caesar, let's start with you. Must see or pass?
Fans must see. Everyone else pass.
Justin?
It doesn't matter. You're going to see it anyway. So to me, it's a pass for me. But this, I will say, is the most angry I've been at my 2-star out of 4 review. And I don't know why this movie irritates me so much. I think it's the main intent of where movies are going, and it just pisses me off. So it's nothing. The movie isn't bad, like we said. It's not. It's just, it makes me so angry on the intent of it. But it's still, at the end of the day, a pass. And like Caesar said, and I can see it, is if you're a fan, it probably is a must-see. But for me, it's a pass.
It's a pass for me as well. There's nothing that really stands out to it. Like Justin said, there's nothing extraordinarily memorable. I think if there is anything memorable, it's maybe the moment where Orion Pax becomes Optimus Prime. There's some cool visual stuff in there, like when is it Alpha Trion? He creates the proof that they need to show that the caste system is a whole different thing. Like that whole, just like that effect is so cool. Like that looks really nice. There's little touches that are really good. But overall, like there's nothing about this movie that I'm like, yes, oh my gosh. Like it just makes me all the more excited for next week when we go see The Wild Robot. I'm very excited for that one.
Yeah. Did you guys stay till the post-credit scene and see the branding of the Decepticons?
Yes, which I said, like that. The only thing that is not in the trailer, I think is the second trailer from that post-credit scene, is the fact that you see them using the brand, where I think you see like the brand drop while it's still smoking, and then you see the menacing looking Megatron is like, I've seen this. Why did I stick around for 10 minutes with this with my kids whining? Like, can we go? Yeah, this is boring. It's just a bunch of words. I do want to leave on a funny note though, because my middle child, who is 6, they'll be 7 sometime next year. I know when it is. I'm just not giving it away. They'll be 7 next year. But they the third time Bumblebee did his Badassatron joke, she looked up at me and she goes, "I like it when he says Badassatron." I was just like, don't say that at school. Do not repeat that joke at school, please. And I think that might have like skewed me a little bit, because I'm like, this is a PG movie. Do we really need? And like, clearly you're not skewing this towards like tween kids. You're skewing this younger. Do you really need Badassatron? Like, do you need that really for this movie?
Yeah, that's true.
But you got the transforming middle finger too. So there's a lot that these kids will eat up when it comes to adult content. But I will say that in the defense of it is, there is a lot of heavy adult themes in the 80s cartoon that really, when we go to this generation, it's all about the dirty. It's all about the middle finger, the swear words. And again, that I'm not going to get into it. I'm going to stop.
My 6-year-old got in trouble for putting up the middle finger at school last year because she picked her nose and she's using her middle finger. And she's just like, hey, look at this. And
but that goes into the intent of these movies, and it drives me nuts, is that it's encouragement, and that's... Films have a responsibility, and that's I'm stopping. I'm sorry.
That when I was leaving the theater, and another guy with his kids was walking out before me, and it's obviously like stadium seating. I'm coming down. He's already down, walking around with his kids. He's like, "You guys like that, right?" Yeah. He looks up at me and says, "That was good, right?" And I'm like, with my kids and my wife, I'm not gonna say no to you. I'm like, "Yeah, it was good, man."
Yeah, and you don't want to like skew the experience for the kids either.
Yeah,
like maybe they had fun, and you don't want to be like, "Fuck no."
Yeah. So true.
All right, guys. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Shitting on Transformers 1, unfortunately, to some extent, making Caesar get a little outside of his comfort zone and being devil's advocate for a lot of it. But Caesar, please let everyone know about the No 115 Allcast and where they can find you on social media.
Definitely, you can find us at the No 15 Allcast across all social media. We're in the middle of our football series at the moment. I think we're almost done, and we have a horror series we're working on right now for October, which is going to be a blast. I think we might do a live stream 30th anniversary show for The Crow. So there you go. Should be fun. Yeah.
Is Justin invited for that one?
Yeah, in costume if you want to come, Justin. Got to come in costume.
Totally down. I got it.
Yeah. It'll be Devil's Night. Devil's Night.
Love it.
Fire it up.
Justin, everyone obviously knows where you're at on everything because you're here so often all of a sudden. But please, once again, let everyone know where they can find you.
You can find me anywhere you listen to podcasts and on all the socials at Movie Wire Show. You can also check out me and Antonio from the Cultworthy Cinema podcast at Back to the Balcony. That's available on YouTube right now.
All right. Thank you again, both of you, so much for being here and talking about this movie with me. I genuinely was so excited to see this, and just seeing such a paper thin movie wasn't disappointing because again, it was fine, but you just hope for a little bit more with such a storied franchise. But please let us know what you thought, dear listener. You can email us your thoughts, reviews, questions, concerns, comments, whatever you want at you can email us at tsmackpod@gmail.com. You can also join our Discord and let me know how much of an idiot I am there. You can find the link to that in our episode description. You can follow us on all the social media platforms at Talking Smack Pod on Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, Hive Social, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Lonnie's website. Thank you to Leo Allen for our musical themes that you're hearing right now. You can also thank Beppo for our original avatars, Retro Studios for our Ricky avatars. Once again, please like, subscribe, rate, review on your podcatcher of choice. Most importantly, again, thank you, Caesar. Thank you, Justin, for being here. And thank you, listener, for taking the time to listen. Take care. We will see you next week when we talk The Wild Robot.
You got the touch. You got the power.
Yeah.
I had to.